This podcast is sponsored by the American Academy of Orthokeratology and Myopia Control. My name is Dr. Tom Wachowski, and I will be your host for this ongoing podcast series. By continuing to interview the world's leading authorities in orthokeratology and myopia control, I hope to keep you up to date on the latest news, research, and information, and to give you the tools that you can use to better serve your patients and to help grow your practice. If you want to learn something new, you could use the trial and error method and try to reinvent the wheel. But it's far quicker and far more efficient to find somebody who's already doing what it is that you're looking to learn and getting the results that you're looking to achieve and do what they do. But if you really want to be great at something, you learn from the best. And that's exactly what we try to do here on the podcast. We have tried to bring you the very best in the world at Ortho K and Myopia Control. In this episode, we continue that tradition. My guest host for this podcast is the co-founder of Eye Care Professionals from Hamilton Square, New Jersey, Dr. Nick Despotidis. Working only 3 days a week, Nick and his partners have grown their practice into one of the largest Ortho K and myopia control practices in the United States today. Nick will share the benefits of his 30-plus years in practice and offer you 12 tips. These tips will help you to implement a vibrant and successful myopia control program in your practice. So with that, Nick, take it away.
Tom, thanks so much for allowing me to share my talk that I gave at this year's Global Specialty Lens Symposium in Las Vegas. It was very well received. They had asked me to speak on giving some tips on building a myopia control practice. So the talk went well, and you invited me to share it with the members of the AAOMC. So basically my talk was tips for a myopia control practice, and I gave 12 tips. I started with background. Those who don't know me, basically we opened up our practice cold, Barry Tannen and myself. We opened up in 1988, so exactly 30 years ago. Our community in Hamilton Square, New Jersey is very middle. It's not upper class, not lower class. It's a very strong working class environment. We have one location that we've built to really support our lifestyles. It's transitioned through many years. And basically, the tipping point in our practice was about 2001. At that point, we were in practice approximately 12 to 13 years. We realized we were getting busier and busier, but somehow we weren't making as much money as you would have thought, even though our gross was going up. And also, we weren't as happy. Our staff was quitting. They were leaving us. We were poor managers because we never were taught how to manage. We thought success was a busy optometric practice, and somehow we learned that this is not the answer. Higher and higher gross, more and more patients. So about 2001, we changed our work week to each work about 3 days a week. We were power practice clients. We did something called the E-Myth to learn how to work on our business, not in our business. We were really looking inside and outside the field for insight on how we could build a practice that basically wasn't our lives, but fed our lives. And that really has worked, and that's allowed me to share what I've learned today with you. At that point, in about 2001, we made a decision. We were going to move away from the traditional commodities of glasses, contact lenses, and turning it to service-based, because we realized even back then, a lot of our income, most of our income came from commodities, and we were in trouble. So right now, if you fast forward about, 20 years or so, we're very happy. Our staff is very happy. Most of our staff members that started with us in 2001 and before are still with us today. And there's quite a few members that have stayed with us for 20 years or more. As a matter of fact, we just celebrated one staff member's 30th anniversary. We have 5 doctors in our practice, 3 of which are partners. Barry and myself have obviously remained partners, and my good friend Ivan Lee joined the practice approximately 15, 16 years ago, again around 2001. He's a full partner, and we share revenue 33, despite whomever brings in more gross, because we know it's a team effort, and that has worked for us. We also have a resident who spends a year with us. This year it's Kelsey Moore, who graduated from Nova. She spends a year with us through a certified vision therapy residency program that focuses on practice management, and that's my aspect of the practice I help her with, and also on vision therapy where she works with Barry. She also does some medical optometry that Ivan helps us with, and it's certified through Southern College of Optometry. We're really lucky to have these very, 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 very bright ODs who are enthusiastic, but yet they have the foresight to know that traditional optometry may not be the way to go upon graduation. And this year we introduced Noah Tannen, Barry's son. He did a residency in vision therapy through Salis, and he just joined the practice as I speak today, just 5 months ago. And I'll speak a lot about Noah because his transition into the practice has been a lot smoother than Ivan's 17 years ago. I hope he'll transition into a partner, and I'll talk about how quickly, even though he had no background in Ortho K, how quickly he picked up the technical aspect, but more importantly, how he's picked up these 12 tips that I'm going to share with you. So I've been doing this a long time. I've been doing it since 1992 when the first reverse geometry lens was produced. We embraced this technology because at the time we mistakenly thought RGPs, rigid gas permeable lenses, slowed down or stopped the progression of myopia. So the thought of possibly having a rigid lens that someone sleeps with and doesn't have to wear it during the day was very intriguing. It wasn't easy for us to embrace this technology. When I went to school, Ortho K was voodoo. And I just tell you, the thought of anybody sleeping with any lens, let alone a hard lens, was just downright ridiculous. But it took us, I would say, almost 8 years to feel more comfortable with the technology. About 1998, my own children became nearsighted. Then I took a stronger interest in Ortho K because anecdotally I was noticing that this procedure, I didn't know how, was indeed slowing down the progression of myopia. So basically, the first tip I give you, it's a long ride, guys. The number one tip is perseverance. We started our practice in 1998. We brought in orthokeratology in 1992. And it was only until about 2002, 10 years later, that it started picking up steam in our office. And we endured a lot of bumps in the road. Ortho K is not for wimps. Just like my good friend Kyle Jones once told me, you know, life is not for wimps. Ortho K is a specialty not for wimps. You have to have thick skin. You're going to endure a lot of ups and downs. But yet I'm here to tell you, that's the purpose of this talk, is if you persevere, you will be rewarded with a much better quality of life, both inside and outside the office. You know, I talked about in my discussion, in my seminar, this book by Napoleon Hill called 3 Feet from Gold, where a lot of people just start digging. They start a subspecialty. They start an exercise program. They start a diet. And in the beginning, they're making some progress. But again, when the novelty or the enthusiasm wears off, that's where the true character perks up. And a lot of people just quit and move on to a different specialty or different diet or different exercise program because they get discouraged. And they're sometimes just 3 feet from gold, but they don't see it. They're digging, and then if you can visualize this, just a few more digs of the axe, and you've hit gold or oil, yet you walk away. So I try to engage the audience by telling them, listen, there are going to be times where you're just going to say, you know what, this is not for me. But think back when you're about to make that decision and say, how many times have I changed directions? And how well has that served me? So what is myopia control? I'm going to tell you what it's not. Myopia control is not orthokeratology. It's not atropine therapy. It's not soft multifocals, and it's not visual hygiene. What myopia control is understanding the demographic that's interested in slowing down the progression of myopia. Just because there's a myopia epidemic doesn't mean that all parents and patients will be interested in doing something about this epidemic. You know, in another lecture I gave the example of the obesity epidemic. Just because there's an obesity epidemic, and yet all of us acknowledge that, yes, we are much heavier as a society as we were 40 years ago, did not translate to us taking action. I think one of the reasons why our office is so successful is not that we fit lenses or prescribe eye drops or soft multifocals better than anybody else. We understand the parent who's interested in stopping their child's myopia from progressing. So tip number 2, myopia control is not a contact lens fit. Everybody forgets this tip. They get enamored with the fitting of technology like scleral lenses and like Ortho K lenses and even the right percentage of atropine, but they're missing the key ingredient here, is that if you start treating your Ortho K or myopia control patients like your ordinary patient, a glaucoma check, eyeglass refraction or exam, you will fail. Trust me, you must make time to see these patients, so you devote the time to engage them because they are the ones who are going to refer friends and family to you. Tip number 3 is that you have to know the difference between marketing and advertising. We don't advertise. We have advertised in the past, and for Ortho K or myopia control, it just doesn't work. Advertising is, my name is Nick Despotidis. I'm a good optometrist. I'm experienced. I fit these lenses called orthokeratology lenses. Come to me so I can convert you into a quote-unquote patient. Doesn't work, guys. There's too much to explain there. We market, and the way we market is we bring awareness to our current patients. Why does this work? Why is our office special? We develop patient loyalty, and from that, we develop word of mouth. That's how we market. It's just like Apple. You know, Apple develops patient or customer loyalty. Even though sometimes you get a Samsung phone or some type of phone for free, yet most of us are aligned with Apple products because of the way they make us feel. We yet pay hundreds of dollars more for a smartphone produced by Apple, yet sometimes with certain carriers, they give us a smartphone for free. They've developed advocacy. They've developed word of mouth. That's what we've done in our practice, and I'll show you how. So advertising is what we used to do. We used to put an ad in the paper, do cable television. We used to do everything, penny savers, and more recently Facebook. The reason why advertising hasn't worked for us is that if the phone gets to ring, our receptionist gets overwhelmed because we haven't educated. They ask so many questions when they do call. So if you give an advertising ad that works and gets people to pick up the phone and call your office, you're burying your staff. You're burying yourself. They ask, how much is corneal reshaping? I've never heard of it. Is it new? Is it covered by insurance? Does my flex spending account cover it? Is it safe? Does it cause infection? I've heard it causes blindness. You know, the questions go on, and your poor receptionist, him or her, is trying to check patients in. They're trying to answer the patient's questions, and yet they get overwhelmed. So at the end of the conversation, a lot of times you know the answer. They say, thank you very much. I'll speak to my spouse. I'll call you back. So even if you create an ad campaign that works to get people to answer the phone, there's too much to explain in myopia control to get them to call your office to make an appointment. However, if you market well, if you take my tips that I'm giving you, they'll call to make an appointment because their friends, their family members have explained to them how their child has benefited from your services and that they want to find out if their child is a candidate. See the difference between marketing and advertising? So my fourth tip to you is slow and steady wins the race. Just think, I don't know if you've ever watched these strongman competitions, right? And maybe, I'm biased, but I watch them on this ESPN2. And they have these big men, and they're lifting boulders. And in one of the competitions, this guy is pulling buses. Not one bus, but huge tractor-trailer-like buses. And he's using a rope to gain momentum to pull the bus behind him. And in the beginning, the hardest part is when this athlete is just trying with all his might to try to get the bus to move just a little bit. And yet, if he keeps trying, the bus moves an inch. And then he grabs the rope again, and it moves 2 inches. And he slowly develops momentum where the bus starts picking up its own momentum. That's how I see our Ortho K practice. It took so long. I want to say decades, but it was 10 years. It was 1 decade to pick up where finally I got momentum. Now for you, you're benefiting from coming to the American Academy of Orthokeratology and Myopia Control, their annual meeting, the visual design meeting. You're benefiting from my experience and dozens of other optometrists who've gone through this, and they're willing to share with you their advice. So you can speed it up by being coached by all these mentors. But you have to follow our advice. You have to come to Vision by Design. You have to ask questions on the Ortho K Google group, because that's the only way you'll speed up your transition. So I gave a case analysis because this is a patient that I see every day, a 10-year-old female who developed myopia at 6 years old, and she was about minus 450 when she was in my chair. So she started myopia in the first grade, and she's minus 450 by 10 years old. And I try to put an Ortho K lens in her, and she cries, and my staff has to console her with gifts. But sooner or later, we tell the parent, yes, the child can wear them, but however, they may or may not be ready. We discuss atropine, etc. And I'm going to teach you my procedures. But I shared with an email from the parent right after the consult saying, hey, Dr. D, we really enjoyed your consultation. My daughter felt comfortable with you, and we would like to proceed with your program. However, the price you quoted for Teresa's treatment, that's the name of the child, we weren't expecting it to be so much. And they asked me, is it negotiable? Can you offer us a better price? A friend mentioned that CRT lens worked for their son. What lens are you using? So you could see long after the patient leaves, there's still a lot of work on our part. And if you're not patient, if you don't persevere, this is when you're going to drop out. I could tell you I've charged as little as a few $100s for this technique, and now I charge a few $1,000s for this technique. It doesn't matter. The questions, the inquiries, the concern has remained the same over the past 2 decades. And I'll come back to this patient later on. So what we do is we develop raving fans. We believe in my office in internal marketing, and we market in the exam chair. We know our demographic. We know that they're nervous. We know they're the engineer type, the doctor type, the person who looks at myopia as a disease, and we make sure we address their stress. So tip number 5 is, in order to be successful, I think in any aspect of private practice, you have to create raving fans. You can't create happy patients. They have to rave about your office, about your care. And I learned this from Ken Blanchard's book, Raving Fans, A Revolutionary Approach to Customer Service. It's an old book. Read it again if you've read it. If you haven't read it, pick it up, because that book has allowed me to prosper in private practice. So the stereotypical doctor that I think has created raving fans, even though he's fictitious, is Dr. Oz, right? Dr. Oz, people watch him. Millions of people watch him every day. His show has endured the test of time. Why? It's the kind of doctor I would like to see when I go into an exam room. He takes his time. He's smart. He answers my questions. He investigates. He brings other doctors to consult in my case. So even though he's fictitious, patients tune into him on a daily basis. They don't see what we see. He doesn't accept our insurance, right? He has 1 hour or half an hour to explain one topic. He doesn't understand, or patients don't understand rather, what we endure in the exam room, making sure the EMR is filled out appropriately, dealing with making sure we're not missing other things like a swollen nerve, a retinal detachment, a field loss. What patients see when they tune in to see Dr. Oz is this caring, friendly physician who wants to help them. What patients get today is someone like Gregory House, right? He's not amused with your BS. And my son, who's training to be a physician, an allopathic physician, right? He thinks he'll be Gregory House. He thinks his job is to show up, analyze the patient's symptoms, look over the differential diagnoses, and come up with the answer. And then he moves on and he's the hero. I try to explain to him, that's not your job. Your job, as I see it, is being empathetic, is showing the patient, I care about you. I will try my very best to find out what's wrong with you, and I will try to help you. I will try to address your fears. I will try to address your concerns. He still doesn't have it. He's young, but most of you out there have entered medicine, have entered optometry, because that was our goal, is to help patients. Something has gone amok where somehow we're asked to see more and more patients for less and less reimbursement, and also more recently the fear of being audited, that we didn't dot every I and cross every T. So my sixth tip is saying to you, you have to know your demographic. You have to know that overachievers are interested in myopia control. Nervous parents, nervous patients, guilty parents, those who view myopia as a disease are your demographic for myopia control. And we used to think it's patients of Eastern Asian descent who are this demographic. It's not true. Having thousands of patients, it spans all ethnicities, all cultures. The patient in my exam chair who's interested in myopia control is an overachiever, type A, nervous parent. And you better face it. And if you can't deal with that parent, now's the time to move on. And the demographic is different for all our specialties. So in vision therapy, for example, it's not necessarily the patient. We have to help our patients, but yet we also have to know our demographic. Who's going to refer to us is occupational therapists, is allopathic and osteopathic physicians who see post-concussion patients. It's the physical therapist working with patients. It's teachers. It's other optometrists. It's athletic coaches. That's our demographic who refers to us in vision therapy, because a lot of times parents, they like to refer to us, but they don't know how many, they don't know many kids who have CIs or post-concussions. But the referral sources do. In our specialty contact lens clinic, when we see, let's say, keratoconic patients, it's the corneal specialists who are demographic. In low vision, it's the retinal specialists. So I hope you know what I mean here, is that you have to know your demographic. So for myopia control, it's the type A parent. So I want to take a minute and review the first 6 tips. Number 1 is you got to persevere. Number 2, you have to know myopia control is not a contact lens fit. Number 3, you have to know the difference between marketing and advertising. We market in the exam chair. Remember, slow and steady wins the race. Think about that strong man pulling onto this tractor trailer full of buses and things. You have to create raving fans. And how do you do that? Number 6, you have to know your demographic. So I'm going to give you a typical email that I share with the audience. Hi, Dr. D. Julia woke up this morning with pain in her eye. After that incident, she's been so hesitant to put in the lens. As a matter of fact, she's skipping every night. She goes in exclamation marks. I'm really concerned. I want help. I would like to bring her in ASAP. And she says, the final response, I look forward to hearing from you. That's your demographic, guys. Same day after she sees me, she sends me an email. This is honest as honest can be. Dear Dr. D, thank you so much for spending time with Julia. That's the patient's name this afternoon. She put on the lens last night and she sees great and no pain. I referred my friend. They will email your staff for an appointment. Thanks so much, Mom. So what the hell happened between I am concerned, I want to bring her in ASAP, to I'm going to refer friends and family? It was literally within 24 hours. The answer to that is tip number 7, critical non-essentials. I talk about this all the time. I've learned it from an Australian dentist, again, about 15 years ago, where critical non-essentials are what we refer to in the office, CNEs, C-N-E. They're the secret sauce, guys. Critical non-essentials are something that's critical to good care, like tonometry is critical to our exam, yet they're non-essential to that exam. So, for example, a non-essential would be email. That's non-essential to the 21-point exam, right? Most of you probably do or do not email your patients. Serving coffee would be a critical non-essential. Getting that patient in ASAP, even though it did not sign urgent, is a critical non-essential. So I'm going to teach you a few of the critical non-essentials. But the key here is consistency. You can't give let's say you give coffee, because that's a tangible. You give coffee, patient's very happy. That's not necessary for good patient care. But they tell all their friends. But then they come in next year, maybe the coffee pot is not clean. It's no longer there. The coffee's stale. So all of a sudden, that critical non-essential is no longer good. I'll give you a more relevant topic. All my patients get snacks when they come in. Every pediatric patient. So the kids love it. So the next visit, oftentimes they bring their friends and siblings. If that snack bin is not there, you've lost your golden opportunity. If the snack bin looks like if it's ravaged through 100 kids, again, it's no longer a critical non-essential. So consistency with these things I'm going to teach you will help you market your practice. So what was my response to Julia's mom that created a raving fan? We got back to her ASAP. So now my receptionist who answers the phone, we also have another receptionist who does non-phone-like topics like emails. So I actually got this forwarded to me. I answered it in between patients. My answer was this: since Julia is experiencing fear, I'd like to examine her ASAP. See, I'm using her language. I want to see her ASAP. In the meantime, please encourage her to put her lenses in before 9 o'clock. This way she's not too tired. I know what's going on. This is my patient. They're waiting until about 10:10 after homework, after about violin practice, after going to swimming practice, and then they're trying to put on a lens that they're new at. It's just not working well. And then I say, I've copied my staff who will get Julia in ASAP. So I've used that twice. I will give her a note for school. So I know that the parent wants to bring this child in at 6 o'clock tonight. I also know I am very, very busy. All 3 doctors, me, Dr. Lee, Dr. Noah are seeing myopia control patients. So I'm not going to squeeze this parent in. They need time. We know their cornea is fine just from the email. What they don't know is they need maybe a rehearsal of the INR. They need me to reassure the parent nothing is wrong. That takes time. So instead of squeezing them in, I basically make the time and say, listen, if you feel it's urgent, take your kid out of school. I will give you a note, but I will allow at least 20 minutes to address your concerns. And my email finishes with, thanks for the excellent update, because I want to praise the mom for letting us know there's an issue. That parent brought their child in a time we could devote to the child without stressing my staff, without stressing anyone. The child is not tired at 6 o'clock at night. And now they are so happy. I became Dr. Oz for about 20 minutes because I allotted the time to become Dr. Oz. All of us can do it if you're committed to that. So the critical and non-essentials that I gave as an example are emailing the parents, placing urgency in our response. You know, a lot of these times they leave messages and the doctor doesn't get back to patients until the next day, until the end of the day, not in our office. We spend time during their visit. We follow up after every visit. Every myopia control patient gets a follow-up email or call, and we have a dedicated staff member assigned to the patients. These are all things that are not critical to our 21-point exam, but yet they're essential for getting patients to refer friends and family. So number 8 goal is obvious. Your goal, your ultimate goal, is to have all your myopia control patients refer qualified candidates to your practice. What I mean by qualified candidates is they need to be myopic. They need to view myopia as a disease because it's not going to be easy to put eye drops in the patient's eyes or any contact lens if the family's not a candidate or is not motivated, I should say. So if you recall, when you do advertising, you may get the phone to ring, but they're not qualified patients. By spending the time with your patients like you want to do, they will refer their friends and family who are, number 1, myopic, number 2, view myopia as a disease, and number 3, are motivated to do something about it. Number 9 tip is you have to make time for a consultation. When I was younger, I used to see a myope. I used to say, hey, there's these contact lenses that you sleep with, and they correct your vision as you sleep, and I think your child would do great with it, and they may stop your child's eyes from getting worse. And the parent would look at me and say, hey, I never heard of this, sign me up. And I would do it right there and then, and it would blow up in my face. So about 20 years ago, we started doing an hour-long consultation. We learned this from vision therapy 30 years ago, is that vision therapy is not something you can explain in a 20-minute exam or a half-an-hour exam. You need to relate what we can do for the child to the parent in a very appropriate and focused setting. So we allow consults. Even if the patient is ready to sign up that day, it's hour-long, and we educate the parent prior to coming in for the consult, during the consult, and after this consult. When they come in, we give the kids snacks. Because a lot of times, I would say most times, the parent is motivated to control the child's myopia, but the child is not. The child is very content, squinting, wearing their glasses. The last thing they want to do is add to their nighttime routine by putting an eye drop in their eye, a contact lens in their eye, or a rigid gas permeable lens at their eye before they go to sleep. Snacks help overcome that fear. And if you visit my office and you see the number of exam rooms, all 7 of them have snacks in them, and if I was to open that drawer, it would appeal to you. You would find something in there that you would say, hey, that looks delicious. And that's orchestrated. Those are systems that I've created because snacks are that important. We email the patient right after the consult because a lot of times they have more questions or concerns, just like Teresa's dad. I have questions about the price. I have questions about what lens you're fitting. and we always provide a report afterwards. So tip number 7 is we email after every consultation. And it goes something like this. Dear Mr. and Mrs. Jones, it was my pleasure to evaluate Teresa. She will do very well with our program. I've attached 2 articles based on our discussion. I provided you with a lot of information. Please look it over. Feel free to email me any questions. So that sparked the dad's response like, I was quoted X amount. And again, if you remember, his response is, thank you so much for the consultation. I read online and understand there are 2 types of FDA-approved lenses. Corneal refractive therapy by Paragon Vision Sciences and vision shaping treatment by Bausch & Lomb. Which is better? So you could see, it's a joke in a way, is that they're reiterating what I know. But this is formulating dialogue. This is their way of saying, are you good long after that consultation? Again, when you do the consultation, a lot of people feel their job is done. It's just the beginning. If you remember Teresa's dad, it's basically they go on, thank you again for answering all my questions, the difference between VST and CRT, which one we fit. The price quoted for Teresa was X. We weren't expecting it so much. Is it negotiable? Remember that? So basically, that was the ultimate goal of the parent. And we address it using an exam report. So the exam report is to the parent. The exam report is to the referring parent or doctor, pediatrician, anyone who shares in the care of that child. And I want to acknowledge someone. There are a lot of people that have done great things. 2 of them is Kate Gifford. She's a clinical optometrist, researcher, educator, and owns a specialty optometry practice in Australia. And she's come up with the myopiaprofile.com, www.myopiaprofile.com. And I refer parents to her site. I also use her site to report to the parent what is the risk their child is undertaking, but not by not intervening. It's a great site. The other great site is www.myopiaprevention.com. A wonderful site, a wealth of information there that probably took years to develop. And I refer patients to this site so they know I'm not the only optometrist doing this or eye professional doing this. So I use Kate Gifford's graph or statistics on what is the likelihood of that child progressing. So really, tip number 12 is know your secret sauce. Like, what makes you different? When someone asks you, what do you do for a living? Your answer shouldn't be, I'm an ophthalmologist, I'm an optometrist. It's like, how do you create raving fans? The other day, I drove to Las Vegas, and the taxi driver said, are you here for a convention? What do you do? I said, I'm an optometrist. I examine children's eyes. A lot of kids are developing myopia or nearsightedness. And the guy stops and he goes, what is that? I said, they wear glasses. And all these electronics, they're keeping their kids inside the house. And that's why so many kids are wearing glasses. And we stir up a conversation with the taxi driver, and he says, makes sense. I don't see kids play outside. Here in Las Vegas, it's beautiful. But no one's playing outside. You know, I knew that smartphone is no good for them. So basically, what's your story? If you just say, I'm an optometrist, you know you get the answer. My screw fell out of my frame. I really need to get it fixed. Or I really need to come in and see you. I've been wearing the same contacts for a year. They're killing me. You know, that kind of stuff. I used to get it all the time. Now I get engagement because when I tell my story, I believe my story. Remember, my story is not I correct vision. My story is I help save children from a debilitating visual condition called nearsightedness. So really, is it marketing or just good care? I know you guys. Anybody listening to this podcast for this long cares. I've been an optometrist for 32 years. And what I know one thing about optometrists and ophthalmologists for the most part, we care about our patients on a deep level. We've become health professionals because we want to provide exceptional care to our patients. We do that by ruling out a pathology, number one. We do that by asking, how are your children? How are your pets? How's your family? We like to talk to our patients. We like to look beyond their eyes. Something has gone amok. And you know what it is. It's the industry's consolidating, buying groups, buying insurance companies, buying retail chains. It's consolidating. Insurance companies abdicating to us how much they're going to reimburse us for our services. The old adage that you have to be busy to be successful is wrong, guys. It's the wrong paradigm. Well, marketing is really just good care. See, Teresa, whose father asked me, is it negotiable, was my patient for 12 years. And she wrote a testimonial for me because she's come in recently. And this is what she said, basically. And I get chills reading it to you. It's not about how good I am, guys. It's really that my long-term effort, me pulling on that bus, inch by half an inch by half an inch, has really translated to a demographic. The mom or dad writes, Teresa has been cared for by Dr. D for 12 years. She started to wear glasses in the first grade. Remember that? We recommended Dr. D to many of our friends. He's different from normal doctors who give patients a few minutes per visit. Remember, I've made myself this Dr. Oz and put the time in where I can concentrate on the patient so they know I'm with them. Dr. D communicates via email and by phone. That's a CNE, a critical non-essential. I wish I wrote this letter sooner. So guys, you could see, even though I call it marketing, it's just good care. It's the care that everybody wants to give. So in summary, I'm going to give you the 12 tips again. Number 1, perseverance. Number 2, myopia control is not a contact lens fit. If you treat it as such, you're going to fail. Marketing is just good patient care. It's not advertising. Slow and steady wins the race. Create raving fans. And you create raving fans by making the time to stay with them and understanding your demographic. The demographic is tip number 6. It's the nervous parent who views myopia as a disease. Number 7, create critical non-essentials in your office. They're essential for referrals. They're not essential for the 21-point exam. Number 8, know the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal, remember, is to refer qualified patients to your office. Qualified patients are one that view myopia as a disease, they're motivated, and they're myopic. Number 9, make time for the consultation. If you don't, you won't be successful, at least in myopia control. Number 10, email your patients. Email them after the consultation. They want to be corresponded with. Tip number 11, write down in a simple exam report why the child would benefit from your care. Not my care, not the competitor across the street. What is your unique patient service that my child should come to see you? Put it on a one-page paper and give it to the parent. And number 12 is what's your secret sauce? Is it just that you're an ophthalmologist, an optometrist? Or is it that you stand for something? You stand for something and you're proud to tell people, I'm no ordinary eye health professional. I help prevent children's eyesight from getting worse. If that doesn't spark up a dinner conversation, nothing else will. So listen, guys, I did this for Tom. I did this for the Orthokeratology Society. I did this podcast for myself. You cannot help but hear the passion in my voice. I urge you to come to Vision by Design in April. I am telling you, I've come to this meeting since its inception. I get so much more out of it than the information from the lecturers. I get information because I'm around like-minded people. I lose a tremendous amount of funds when I leave my office for a few days at a time. That's why I do it so infrequently. But I do it at the Vision by Design because I learn something from someone at each meeting, even yourself. So I encourage you, I think it starts about April 10th or 11th, and come there, you will learn, you will benefit. I also give my Supercharge workshop there. Yes, I'm promoting it because I think it's one of the most unique workshops in the world. I give my heart out, I give my systems out, but most importantly, I give you what you need most, is the tools for practice autonomy. So, like I tell everybody on my Facebook group, it's your life, your practice, your way. Thank you so much, Tom, for inviting me.
Thank you, Nick, for those pearls of wisdom. I truly appreciate you taking the time to share your expertise with us. And I look forward to seeing you at Vision by Design in Orlando on April 11th. To join the discussion about this episode, log into the American Academy of Orthokeratology and Myopia Control Facebook page. This is Dr. Tom Wachowski. Until next time, thank you very much for listening.